I never thought I'd be the one writing something like this. It feels shameful, embarrassing, almost like I failed as both a husband and a stepfather. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes life forces you to face ugly truths, truths that you can't ignore, no matter how much you want to bury them. My name's Daniel. I'm 45 now, but when most of this unfolded, I was in my late 30s. I had been divorced for several years after my first marriage fell apart, and I honestly didn't think I'd ever want to risk my heart again. But then I met Claire. She was radiant, warm, full of energy, the kind of woman who made you feel like the center of the universe when she looked at you. She had a son from her previous marriage, Tyler. At the time, Tyler was 16, lanky, quiet, and a little aloof in the way most teenagers are. He didn't immediately accept me, and honestly, I didn't expect him to. I knew from experience that being a stepdad meant being patient, respectful, and not trying to replace the role of a biological father. The first couple of years were rocky. Tyler barely spoke to me at dinner, rolled his eyes when I asked about school, and treated Claire like she was more of an annoying older sister than his mother. But I told myself it was normal teen angst, that he'd grow out of it. And in the meantime, Claire and I built our life together. We married a year after meeting, bought a modest house, and tried to create a stable, loving environment. I was grateful to have her. After my messy divorce, she felt like my second chance. But here's the part I wasn't prepared for. Tyler's behavior didn't just stay teenage angst. It got darker, stranger, and eventually destructive. It started with little things. Tyler would disappear for whole nights without telling Claire where he was. He'd come back at 3 or 4 a.m. reeking of alcohol, sometimes weed. Claire would scold him, cry, try to reason with him, but it was like talking to a wall. At first, I tried to stay out of it. I didn't want to be the overbearing stepdad, especially when I hadn't fully earned his respect. But then I noticed things that made my stomach twist. Once, I found a string of texts on the family iPad he had borrowed. They weren't just typical teen flirting. They were messages to a married woman, not another high schooler, not even a college girl. A woman in her late 20s with kids, talking about sneaking around while her husband was too dumb to notice. I confronted Tyler, thinking it was a sick joke, some kind of edgy teenage prank. He just smirked at me and said, "You wouldn't get it. She wants me." I'll never forget the chill that went through me in that moment. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't scared. He was proud. Over the next 2 years, I saw it happen again and again. Tyler chasing women who were already taken, sometimes older, sometimes closer to his age, but always married, always in relationships. It was like he got off on the secrecy, on the danger of it. I tried talking to Claire about it, but she brushed it off. He's just young. He'll grow out of it. She was blinded by that motherly instinct to protect, to see the best in him. And I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But I kept seeing the signs. Late-night whispers on the phone. Hushed laughter when he thought no one was listening. A bra in his backpack that clearly wasn't from a girl his age. It got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. The moment everything crashing down happened when Tyler was 19. By then, he was living at home while taking community college classes. He'd started working part-time at a local gym. One night, Claire and I were invited to a neighborhood barbecue. Everyone was drinking, eating, laughing. Tyler had said he'd meet us there after work. When he finally showed up, he wasn't alone. He walked in with a woman who I recognized instantly, Michelle, our neighbor. Michelle was married with 2 kids under the age of 10. Her husband, Eric, was standing just a few feet away, flipping burgers at the grill. I froze. My blood ran cold. Tyler was grinning ear to ear, his hand brushing Michelle's lower back like they'd been lovers for months. And the worst part, she didn't pull away. She smiled back. I don't think anyone else noticed in that moment, but I did. And once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I confronted Tyler in the driveway. "What the hell was that?" I hissed. He smirked, the same smug grin he'd had years earlier when I first caught him texting a married woman. "Relax. She's not happy with her husband. She wants me." I wanted to shake him, scream at him, demand that he understand the destruction he was playing with, but all he did was laugh. "You're acting like I'm the bad guy. If they're not satisfied in their marriage, that's on them. I'm just giving them what they want." That was the moment I realized Tyler wasn't just experimenting or going through a rebellious phase. He had a pattern, a compulsion. He couldn't stop, and I couldn't stop watching it unfold, no matter how much I wanted to look away. It didn't take long for the fallout to hit. Less than a month later, I came home to flashing red and blue lights on our street. Police cars, shouting, Eric pacing the lawn with his hands in his hair. Michelle was crying, kids being led away by her sister. Eric had caught Michelle sneaking out at night. He had followed her, straight to Tyler's car. Apparently, there was a screaming match in the driveway, fists thrown. The whole neighborhood woke up to it. By the time it was over, Michelle was begging Eric for forgiveness. Eric was threatening divorce, and Tyler just stood there smirking, like he'd won something. The next day, Michelle's minivan was gone. She took the kids and moved in with her sister. Eric stopped speaking to anyone. And me? I had to walk into the kitchen and face Claire. She had already heard. She was pale, shaken. But instead of rage at Tyler, she was in tears. She whispered, "He's just confused. He doesn't understand the damage he's doing." I wanted to scream. Confused? This wasn't confusion. This was destruction. And he wasn't sorry, not even a little.
From that point on, our house turned toxic. I couldn't look at Tyler without seeing the smug grin he wore at that barbecue. Claire couldn't stop making excuses for him. Every conversation turned into an argument. "He's still young. He'll grow out of it. You're being too hard on him." But he was 20 now. Not a kid, not some clueless teenager. He knew exactly what he was doing. I started sleeping on the couch. Not because I didn't love Claire, but because I couldn't handle being in the same room as her son, and by extension, her blind loyalty to him. I wish I could say that Michelle was the last time it happened. But it wasn't. Over the next 2 years, Tyler repeated the same pattern. Different women, always taken, always chaos left in his wake. A married coworker at the gym, an engaged woman he met on Tinder, even the wife of one of my own business colleagues. Each time, Claire found some way to downplay it. Each time, I felt myself pulling further and further away from her. And the worst part? I saw it coming. Every time, I could see the flirtation, the secret smiles, the late-night disappearances. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash over and over again, and I couldn't stop it. The breaking point came 3 years later. By then, Tyler was 22. I'd tried distancing myself, tried pouring myself into work, tried counseling with Claire. Nothing changed. Then one night, I came home earlier than usual. Claire was out with friends. The house was dark, except for the light in the living room. And there was Tyler, on the couch, with a woman I knew very well. Not a neighbor, not a coworker, not some stranger. It was Claire's best friend, Jenna. Married, kids, someone who had been in our wedding photos, who had held Claire's hand through hard times, who had sat at our dinner table more times than I could count. I stood in the doorway frozen, the sound of them laughing and whispering, cutting into me like knives. That was it. The line I couldn't unsee, couldn't forgive, couldn't explain away. When Claire came home later that night, I told her everything. She broke down, sobbing harder than I'd ever seen her cry. She begged me not to leave, begged me to understand that Tyler was sick, that he just needed help. But I was done. I loved Claire. God, I still did, but love wasn't enough anymore. Not when her son had wrecked every shred of peace in our lives, and not when she refused to hold him accountable. The next week, I packed my bags. I filed for divorce a month later. It's been almost 4 years since that night. I haven't spoken to Tyler since. Claire tried reaching out once or twice, but eventually she stopped. Last I heard, Tyler moved to another city. Word through mutual friends is that he hasn't changed. More affairs, more wreckage, like a storm that keeps moving from town to town, leaving nothing but broken homes behind. And me? I've rebuilt. Slowly, carefully. I live alone now. And for the first time in years, my house is quiet, peaceful. Sometimes, late at night, I still wonder if I could have done more, if I should have stayed and forced Claire to see the truth, if I failed not just as a husband, but as a stepfather. But then I remember the look on Tyler's face every time he got caught, that smirk, that pride. And I know the truth. He couldn't stop, and I couldn't keep watching.